Oh my god, what's going on, guys? Horse beef. What is going on, man? I want to speak about the main event this weekend. Fluffy Hernandez and Sean Strickland are going to go at it. This is actually a very intriguing matchup. I don't usually speak on fight night cards, really, unless it's one that I am particularly hyped for. And I am hyped for this one, right? Even though Sean Strickland, admittedly, I find him to be very boring and uninteresting as a fighter. He's extremely rudimentary. He's very, very basic in his approach. However, he's being severely underestimated here. Now, I know I'm not the only one who's going to be picking Sean. Yes, spoiler alert, I'm picking Sean, and I'll rationalize exactly why. But the odds, if I was a degenerate gambler, would definitely be enticing me at this moment in time. Because Sean, man, say what you want about him, say what you want about his style, right? Make fun of him for looking like iCarly in there. Very, very valid, right? Make fun of him for just throwing a jab at a teep. But we cannot be underestimating how fucking good Sean Strickland really is, right? Because who has actually beaten this dude? Who has actually went out there and bested him, right? Besides Dricus du Plessis in recent years, right? Is Dricus du Plessis, who's still, in my opinion, the best fighter at 185, like when it comes to, fisticuffs and taking risks and actually trying to fight somebody. Dricus is still the best at 185, and I'll die on that fucking hill. But he went 10 rounds with Dricus du Plessis, right? He dominated Paulo Costa in a very boring fight. Yeah, sure, it was very boring, right? He dominated Israel Adesanya. He finished Abu Magomedov. He beat Nasruddin Imavov, which ages very well. On short notice, by the way, right? His only real losses, like true, genuine losses, getting knocked out by Alex Pereira and getting beaten in two close fights, right? Two relatively closely fought contests against Dricus du Plessis. Yes, the second one was very clearly a win for him. The first one's debatable. Now, obviously, it's not as simple as just comparing resumes, styles, make fights for a reason. But when I take a look at what Anthony Hernandez has done in his last few fights, obviously it's very, very impressive, right? He just overwhelms his opponents. Roman Dolidze, he had nothing in him by the end of the first round. It was clear what was going to happen at that point, right? He did also beat Brendan Allen, which is an impressive win to have on the resume, absolutely, especially with how he beat RDR. Michel Pereira, he was done after one round. And he faced some adversity early on in that one, right? Roman Kopylov, similar type of situation where he faced a bit of adversity, right? He was getting pieced up. He was eating those fucking left kicks off of Roman, but then he overwhelmed him and found the submission in the second round. Edmund Shabazian, similar situation. It was actually a very competitive fight up until he was just overwhelmed. Marc-Andre Barriault, same thing, competitive fight. Like, even if you want to go back to his fights against Adolfo Vieira and Jun Young Park, right? Competitive fights until he just overwhelmed his opponents. And that really is the key behind Anthony Hernandez's success so far in his career. Just overwhelming you with crazy volume, staying in your face. He's put together a very nice 1-2. He does have decent boxing, honestly kind of underrated boxing, but it's mostly just a 1-2, although that's really all you need at the end of the day. But Sean Strickland, it's quite hard to hit him with those straight shots, just the way that he defends. And what has Anthony Hernandez been very susceptible to, not only in the early part of his UFC career, where he was finished due to body strikes, but also even later on in his career up to this point against Michel Pereira. Fluffy Hernandez is very susceptible to body shots. He is, dude. And that's exactly how you deter somebody like Anthony Hernandez from walking forward. That's how Peter Yan deterred Merab Dvalishvili and got that victory. Obviously, he's going to do a lot less than what Peter Yan did in there. And obviously, Anthony Hernandez is not like Merab necessarily, but he does overwhelm you like that, and he's just constantly shooting high volume of takedown attempts, right? He's always attacking the neck. He's just looking to drain you in there, make you carry his weight. But what did Peter do to keep Merab off him? Putting that consistent stiff jab in his face and kicking him in the body. What is Sean Strickland, one of the best in the UFC, at? Hitting you with the jab over and over again and teeping your body. Those teeps come out of nowhere. They're very fast. They're very snappy, and they look like nothing, but against the soft body of Fluffy Hernandez. And that's not an insult, dude. He just is. He's a former fat person. When you're a former fat person, you usually end up having a pretty soft body, and people with that soft body are easier to hurt. It's just as simple as that. And there also seems to be a correlation between cardio demons and being hurt to the body, relatively easy compared to other fighters. You know what I mean? It's just there seems to be some kind of a correlation there. I wonder why. But Merab and Anthony Hernandez, two fighters who are cardio demons, pace demons, who are extremely susceptible to body shots. And I also don't really see Anthony Hernandez out wrestling Strickland like that, because he really starts having success once you get that snowball momentum going, right? If he can't find that against Sean, how is he supposed to really deal with Sean's defense? How is he supposed to piece up Sean? How is he supposed to outstrike Sean if it becomes that type of a fight? Like, I understand Anthony Hernandez, right? He comes forward, he's constantly in your face, and he's looking to overwhelm you. But Sean's he's very calm in there, but at the same time, he's very reactive with his defense. He's hard to hit in the head. That jab is going to be a nightmare for Anthony Hernandez. Those teeps to the body could accumulate. And over time, who knows, maybe we even see Anthony Hernandez start to fade in this one if it gets dragged out. Because you can say what you want about Anthony Hernandez's pace, right, in his style, but he has not gone 5 rounds yet, right? He has never been 5 rounds. He almost got there against Michel Pereira, but like I said, Michel Pereira had nothing to give after the first round in there. It's a lot easier to go 5 rounds when you're not really forced to fight whatsoever. Like, he was put in no danger whatsoever past round 1, so he really could do whatever he wanted at any moment to Michel Pereira. And Sean Strickland is not Roman Dolidze who will fold like that. He won't. He will not. He's not Michel Pereira, who is like essentially tailor-made for Fluffy Hernandez to do that exact thing to. Sean is a 5-round fighter. He's built for 5 rounds, and he's been there 4 or 5 rounds against some of the best fighters that we've seen in middleweight history. It's a big step up for Anthony Hernandez, man. It's a big step up, and I don't think that he'll pass that test. I think this will be a great fight. Don't get me wrong, right? With Fluffy Hernandez, he'll force Sean to fight. And we've seen that if Sean can dictate the pace, yeah, the fight will be just a snooze fest. But when you force Sean to fight, he can fight. He can bite down the mouthpiece, man. He had his fucking nose flattened against DDP, and he kept pushing. He kept pushing, man. He was trying to adjust it in the middle of the fight. And he was eating shots on that shattered nose for the rest of that fight. And he did not give a fuck, man. He never folded. Sean Strickland, he gets a bad rep for his style, but the man is an absolute dog, an absolute warrior, and an elite fighter at the end of the day. And I believe he'll get that y'all must have forgot moment. I think he'll have that moment here, dude. I'm really feeling it. Sean Strickland, I have a good feeling about him this weekend, man. But either way, wouldn't really care. I like Sean Strickland. I like the fact that he speaks his mind the way that he does. And Anthony Hernandez seems like a chill dude. He just seems like a really chill dude. So if you want, and he's also very entertaining, right? Stylistically, I prefer him over Sean Strickland. But I just feel like this is a big step up for Fluffy. And Sean Strickland cannot be underestimated, man. He can't be. God, he is really good. He's such a tough nut to crack. He's constantly sparring. He's in great shape going into this one, too. I don't know, man. I believe Sean Strickland will get this one done. I think it'll be a decision, but I think either way it goes, right? This one will probably be a decision. I could see maybe a late sub for Fluffy, but in order for him to really impose that will, he needs to get that snowball effect going. And like I said, I have a really hard time seeing him imposing his will against someone like Sean Strickland, who's been in there against animals, and beaten most of them. So yeah, that concludes my thoughts for the main event, man. I figured while I'm here, I may as well just give you my predictions for the rest of the card too. So let's get into that right now. Starting off with Juliana Miller versus Carly Judice, man. I don't necessarily rate either of these ladies here, and why is it in French? Listen, I'm not going to question it, man. I'm just going to choose Carly Judice. Juliana Miller is just not very good. Last I remember from her, like in what, Ultimate Fighter, if I remember correctly, who really gives a shit? Nobody at the end of the day. Then we get Jordan Levitt versus Yadir Del Valle. Now, he's coming off that really controversial win over, Isaac Dulgarian, and Jordan Levitt is not very good in my opinion. Del Valle is just better everywhere this fight goes, in my opinion. Yes, Jordan Levitt, he's kind of funny and he does like gay things in the octagon and stuff, and people think that's cool. But like skill for skill, he doesn't beat Del Valle on the feet, and in my opinion, doesn't beat him on the ground either. So I think Del Valle will continue his win streak and keep the O right there. We then get into Phil Rowe versus Jean-Paul Labasniani. I'm admittedly not very familiar with him. However, despite my ignorance on Labasniani, I still think that he'll win this fight. Why? I honestly don't really know. All I know is that Phil Rowe, he's okay. He's not very good. But even Ange Lusa was kind of, getting the better of him until he found that late finish against him, man. I just feel like Labasniani, I like the cut of his jib, and I think he'll get it done, man. Why? Don't know. But then we get into Ramiz Brahimaj against Punelle Soriano. This one is actually very, very interesting on paper. Very interesting because Ramiz Brahimaj is in great form coming off a finish. I think Punelle Soriano is coming off a bit of a boring performance, but generally speaking, he is a finisher. But at his newfound weight class, dude, he does seem to be grappling a little bit more. And both these guys, well-rounded, both guys with power in their hands. This is a really tough one to call, and ultimately, I'm going to say Ramiz Brahimaj. I'm gonna say he subs Punelle Soriano in the second round, maybe. But it's a really tough one, man. That one could be fight of the night for sure. Then we get Nora Cornhole against Jocelyn Edwards, and I don't know, man. I'm just gonna say Jocelyn Edwards. Because why not, man? She has pretty interesting genetics, and she's got a big-ass forehead. Holy shit, that's a big forehead. Yeah, man. Alden Correa versus Luis Gurule. Man, Gurule was an undefeated prospect coming into the UFC at one point. I think he's on a 2-fight skid right now. He really has to pick this one up. And I'm not backing him to do it, man. I think Alden Correa, from what I've seen from him, the guy can crack. Big power in his hands. Gurule can get cracked. I don't know. I think he's going to put out Gurule, I'm going to say, in the second round, man. Second round TKO. Then we get on to Ode Osborne against Alibi Idris. I don't know if that's how you say his name. That's a cool-ass name, though, man. And here's the thing, man. Ode Osborne, he's the kind of fighter that you don't want to bet against because on paper he's very skilled, right? He's very fast, very, very explosive, especially in the first round. He's well-rounded. He can do it all, as you would expect from most flyweights. But Alibi Idris is a scary-looking dude, isn't he, man? He's a scary-looking Kazakh. He's coming off of a loss. And I feel like on paper, maybe he is the logical one. Most people just look at Ode Osborne's record and think that he's like a journeyman, but he actually is very skilled. And I think that he'll beat Alibi Idris, I'm going to say, by decision. I just think he's very well-rounded and somewhat underrated despite his record, man. Then we get on to Chidi Njokuani versus Carlos Leal. And now Leal, I feel like, has lost a whole lot of that quote-unquote aura that he had beforehand after getting knocked out by Muslim Salikov. And I feel like he might be walking into another knockout loss here. Chidi Njokuani, he may not have the craziest gas tank in the world, but he is a massive, massive weight bully, super long. He can crack, and Carlos Leal just walks forward. I believe he's going to walk into a knee or something and get put out. I'm going to say another first-round knockout loss for Carlos Leal. I'm not sure if that's a controversial pick there. I honestly haven't really put too much thought into this card, in all honesty. Then we get Zach Reeves versus Michel Pereira. Now, I'm going to back Michel Pereira to finally pick up a win. Like, when's the last time we saw Michel Pereira win? I can't even really remember. There was one point where he was putting up like a whole bunch of first-round finishes, man. But Zachary Reese, I don't know. I just don't think he's anything spectacular. And Michel Pereira, he's explosive enough in the first round. He just constantly pushes that finish, and I believe he'll get it, man. Whether it be a submission or a knockout win, I believe that he will finish Zachary Reese within the first round. And then we get into Jacoby Smith versus Josiah Harrell. And Jacoby Smith, I feel like, is the obvious pick here. Both of these dudes are undefeated. They kind of look like different variants of one another. Maybe Josiah Harrell got, a little bit more of that white gene, but I feel like these dudes do look like very similar human beings. Just different variants, like I said. But Jacoby Smith, I don't know how legit he is, but he is good, dude, and he has big power in those hands, and I think that he will get the knockout here. I think he'll get the knockout over Josiah Harrell, but then again, I could just be underestimating Josiah because I don't really know much about him, but I'm still going to go Jacoby Smith via a knockout in the first round. We then get into Sergey Spivak against Ante Delia. Now, despite Ante Delia's third nipple, which I totally forgot about, but it is honestly distracting and perplexing me at this moment. But yeah, what was I even fucking saying? Yeah, man, like, despite him getting knocked out by Waldo, he's shown to be one of these non-fat, tubby heavyweights who is not stuck in the mud. He actually is light on his feet and has fast hands, and I think he will. He'll make us all forget about that last performance and go out there and knock out Sergey Spivak in the first round. I think he'll just put those fast hands on Sergey. Obviously, if Sergey gets him down, that could spell major danger for him. But I back Ante Delia. He's one of these non-fat heavyweights, and I want him to stick around, man. Sergey Spivak, he's not bad or anything, but Ante Delia, I think, will get the better of him in there and just finish him on the feet. Then we get into Dan Ige against Mel Caziel Costa. If that's how you say it, I'm not too sure. Now, this one is somewhat tough, dude. Dan Ige is a tough nut to crack. He has a great chin. It's always hard to pick against someone like Dan Ige when they're very skilled and are really hard to knock out. It's always hard to pick against these dudes, but I think Melquizael Costa will win a decision here against Dan Ige and just generally outclass him. I don't really see either of these guys getting subbed. I don't see a knockout either way it goes. Maybe Costa gets knocked out because Dan Ige does have underrated hands. Man, that right overhand is fucking nasty. The left hook is nasty. He has very good boxing, but ultimately I think the well-rounded skills and just having more variety on the feet as well, that will be a major advantage to Costa here. He's a heavier kicker as well. I feel like he will just, like, while on the feet, he will outpoint Ige, and if it gets on the ground, I believe they'll cancel each other out, and I think Costa will win a decision. And then we get into the co-main event and the last fight that we'll be talking about in today's video, man. Jeff Neal against Uros Medic. Very strange matchup, to be honest. Uros Medic has been on a bit of a tear recently. You would say he's picked up some pretty decent knockouts. I think most recently against Muslim Salikov, who's like one of the only Dagestanis who I actually like. So that's a shame. But this is a big step up for Earls Medic. This is actually a very big step up. This kind of comes across as more of a tune-up fight for Jeff Neal. And I don't know. I think he'll just put a big, sharp left hand on Earls Medic's chin and put him down in the first round TKO. And that's what I'm going to predict. And that just conclude my thoughts on the card overall, man. Like the main point of this video was just to talk about my thoughts surrounding Fluffy Hernandez and Sean Strickland. But yeah, I figured I would just go through the rest of the card. But in all honesty, as you can probably tell, I didn't actually put a whole lot of thought into my predictions for this card. But those seem to be the ones where I have the highest success rate. So fucking, I'll see you guys back here once I get 100% on my picks, which is just bound to happen at this point. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I appreciate it as always, and I'll see you in the next one.